just fresh off of a match last night against a good Illinois team. Our squad played very well in beating the Illini in 3. So that's good news. A couple days prior to that, we played Rutgers. Does that sound right? Okay. And we're able to sweep them. And so really a couple of sweeps this weekend in which I feel like our team is starting to play at the highest level that it's played at all season, but that will be determined, I think, this week with the schedule we have going to Penn State, who will be 3rd or 4th ranked in the country when the poll comes out in a few minutes. And then back home for our final home match and our senior night festivities with Southern California on Saturday. What time is that? 7? 7 o'clock match on Saturday. So it's a really, really big week. Penn State handled us in our opening match of the Big Ten season. Since that particular match with Penn State, our team has really grown and developed, I believe. And I feel like that was a real wake-up call for us. We've used that in that capacity. But since then, we've gone, I guess, what's our record? 13-3. So we've gone 11-2 since then. The 2 losses being at Nebraska in a really close match, and then here against Wisconsin in a not-so-close match. But the rest we've won, and many of those we've won in sweeping formation. So I think we've come a long way, and we need to continue to get better, but 4 gigantic matches to determine our seed in the NCAA tournament coming ahead. So I don't know who has. Sam, you got the mic?
When you say you've come a long way, where have you come along the most since that match? You know, it was pretty embarrassing, I think you said, from that night right after the fact.
I think first and foremost, from a mental toughness and an attitude to develop standpoint, to becoming more willing to learn and listen and be great teammates. I think that's the first. And without those things, everything else doesn't matter. And I think that we were a little too high on ourselves early based on last year's results for a young team and early season prognostications. And we needed somebody to beat us, and we lost 3 out of 4 in succession. And I think that was enough that we realized we had a lot of work to do. So that was number 1. Number 2, I think, would be our serving. The fact that we had to work to develop some better serving, some tougher serving, make it a priority. That it wasn't just another thing after we get done hitting and blocking and playing defense and some of those things. And now we're getting to a point where I feel so much better because I'm calling zones. I'm the guy right now calling zones for the first time in 22 years here. And so I've got to figure out what's going to be the best serve for each person when they go back, and do we need to make a substitution, and what zone are we going to go with, and what are they capable of serving. And I was pretty limited, I thought, early. Now I've got a lot more flexibility in what we can do. So that's a positive. And then another really important criteria was serve-receive, our passing of the opponent's serve, where at one point early in the Big Ten season, maybe after the 3rd weekend of Big Ten play, we were about 16th or 17th in what our serve-receive stats were. And when I looked at it today, we were 7th. Okay, that's a nice climb. Now, I'd like to be 1, like everybody would be, but maybe we have been for the last 5 weeks to make that kind of a move to go from 17th to 7th in a league as good as ours. We're starting to pass the ball at a high level. I've said all along to you guys and anybody that's willing to listen to me that when we start passing the ball, we're going to be really hard to stop. And now we're starting to pass the ball, and I think that we're difficult. We've got a lot of options to go to. So those are the 3 areas that I think that we've really made progress in.
When Michael got here, I know you started relying a little bit more on analytics. When you're calling serves, how much of that is analytical, and how much of that is kind of feel for what's going on?
Yeah, it's both. You know, it doesn't take an analytics or a mathematic genius to watch teams play and figure out who can pass the serve and who can't. I just I've been watching Penn State all morning, and right away you can see who's getting aced, or who's passing the ball, 20 feet off the net, and who's putting the ball right to the target. So you start with that, but then you start breaking it down by rotation, and the analytics will indicate who can pass short, who's bad passing the ball short in front of him, who doesn't pass the ball to the right, who doesn't pass the ball to the left or deep, some of those kind of things. So we'll dive into that as we go, but I think that's one area that you can lean on your eyesight to figure it out, but we'll get a lot of help with analytics. I think you start looking at other things like serve receive, who they want to set the ball to off serve receive, and then what shot do they hit off serve receive, things like that. Analytics is really, really important.
I think USC is a team that you've scheduled in non-conference in the past. How much does the inclusion of USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington factor when you're doing your non-conference scheduling now, because you know you're going to have more heavyweights on your schedule for an NCAA tournament resume?
Well, I think we still really want to schedule hard teams that are going to have good records, and every year that's our plan. It doesn't always fare that way. I'll take University of Maryland, Baltimore County, who the last 3 or 4 years has won their league and has won about 90% of their matches. This year they scheduled super tough in non-conference, and they're not as good, and so they're sitting at about 8-10 on the season. That's not helping us a whole lot, okay? But you're right. You have to consider that the league is going to be tougher, but I feel like we're at a point in our program that we're not going to back down to anybody right now. Our program has that kind of talent and that kind of competitive spirit that, you know, we'll take on all comers at this point in time. Our league is tough. I was just talking with Kathy George, the former Michigan State coach. She now is coaching the pro team in Grand Rapids, and